I mentioned earlier there's currently a major operation targeting Coles Distribution Centre at Smeaton Grange in Sydney Southwest next to Narellan. The RMS and New South Wales Police are investigating claims of what they call preferential treatment and what they call unsafe work practices. We've been told they've already found breaches for load restraint and mass issues. It follows another RMS operation where 235 charges have been laid against an Illawarra trucking company, McCabe Transport, over alleged fatigue-related breaches. Now, these relate to drivers who failed to record work times in 2011, but strangely, we might find out why, the workers haven't been targeted, but rather the company, suggesting they were made to do it. Tony Sheldon is the National Secretary of the Transport Workers Union. He's online. G'day, Tony.
Good morning, Ray.
Long time no talk. You okay?
Yeah, I'm going well, thanks, Ray.
Do you know much about what's happening out at the distribution centre at Smeaton Grange at the moment?
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is that, to the credit of Duncan Gay and Mike Gallagher, the police minister, that they're targeting, as it appears, the Coles Distribution Centre, the top and most powerful client in the country when it comes to road transport distribution. And we've seen some terrible industry statistics, and Coles is at the top of the list for pressuring drivers in all those stats. And it appears that Coles is going to be held to account for those practices, and that's yet to be seen, but it seems all the indicators are that the government's taking this extremely seriously, and credit to them. What does it mean, preferential treatment? I've had a guess at it, but you might have a clearer knowledge of it. Well, what happens is that Coles awards contracts, and they set deadlines, and if you're late on the deadline, then you receive penalties. And you can be late because of bad weather, traffic incidents, you just get late loaded. You're coming in from Melbourne or Brisbane or for anywhere in the country, and you've got a window of opportunity to unload, and if you don't meet that window sometimes of an hour, or then you get penalised, and your transport company gets penalised, and you get threatened with your contract. And what we're seeing Coles doing is delaying payments to companies, moving them out from 30 days to 60 days to 90 days to 120 days, which forces the company cash flow to take even more extreme measures because they get sweated, and that means that they're getting such low margins and being so pressured by Coles that you have to turn around and do even more to meet those sort of demands of Coles, and to meet them, you're going to do it illegally. Because if you've got a delay on the road, you've got to speed up around that delay. See, sometimes I see, and this is as opposed to long haul, the blokes that come from the distribution centre and go to my local Coles, and there might be a traffic jam at the roundabout. It might be school get out time, or mums are all going to the shopping centre. I think that poor bugger's going to be there for an hour trying to get through that traffic to get to the back of Coles to unload. Well, that's right. It's a tough road going from distribution centres to local shops, or shops that might be quite some kilometres away, and particularly when you're doing long distance into the distribution centres where you're from anywhere over the country, you've got even less control than you do just from the distribution centres to your local shop. And then you've got Coles screaming down the phone, screaming at your boss, and your boss is saying, hey, we're going to lose this contract and you're going to lose your job if we don't meet their demand, because there's no appeal mechanism. The appeal is the Coles manager, and they've told you've got to break, effectively, economically, you either break the law to get this work done, or you don't have the work. And that's one of the things that what appears to be being done today. This Coles Distribution Centre is dealing with some of the road issues, the road law issues, but there's also an important piece of legislation that deals with the economic issues, because for all the great work, and I'll say it again, they need to be congratulated, Duncan Gay and Mike Gallagher, for their work they've been doing the last 12 months and again today. But they can't deal under legislation with the economic pressures that are on transport companies and truck drivers and owner-operators, and these penalty systems that some of these penalty systems that are put in place by Coles are just outside their legal realms. It can only be done nationally, and it has to be done across the country. And we've got a very important piece of legislation there that does that in its early stages of being enforced. Do you know anything about McCabe Transport in the Illawarra and how these charges have been levelled at the company as opposed to the drivers who apparently drove beyond the logbook requirements? Look, I think this is, again, smart targeting in the sense of the way that the government's approaching it, that you want drivers to come forward. They're not going to come forward after they've been pressured with losing their job, only to come forward and lose it. So these charges, these 230 odd charges, and McCabe's are extremely important. When you see that, one whistleblower said that they were forced to do 7,000 kilometres a week, and some, up to 18 to 23 hours in a day. And we've seen this sort of surveying happening in different industries. The one thing about McCabe's, I would hope that they come clean about what's happened in their operation, but also give up their client. And that's a tough thing for a company to do as well. So
are you suggesting McCabe will put under pressure to meet the deadlines that we've spoken about in relation to, not drawing a parallel between them and Coles, but forced into, competing and drawing deadlines that would put them outside the law?
I have no doubt. In actual fact, the National Transport Commission inquiry of 2 years ago, coroner's reports of the last 10 years, parliamentary inquiries have all very clearly, unequivocally said that's the case, of what happens in this industry. And I'll be very surprised if McCabe's haven't fallen into the exact same trap. That doesn't mean they aren't responsible for what they've done. They should be, if that's the way the court finds it, and there's lots of charges there and lots of evidence. But we will find that they're under economic pressure to put in prices that would mean they had to cut corners to win the contract. And we've recently seen, of course, this horrible incident just late last year with the fuel tanker in Moonavale
with Coots,
with Coots, that company there was pressured by Shell and Coles to put the lowest price in, even though they didn't have the best maintenance. They had the oldest trucks. Had some fantastic and do have fantastic drivers there, and a new management team that's getting their act together. But the business was sweated to a point of economic problems, and which resulted in road problems. And that's what happens when you're Coles and Shell and big companies, and you're worried about the buck, not worried about the road user.
I know that you try to run, in terms of the TWU, a squeaky clean operation. It's not always possible, given what you have to deal with. But some of your union colleagues have really, really brought the union movement down in recent times. There'll be a Royal Commission instituted by the federal government. Do you think that some unions need to actually improve in terms of the way they operate, and allegations that the CFMEU are involved with gangs and bikies and the rest of it?
Look, I think the allegations are horrific, and the police should be acting on them straight away. And I think what happened with, I'm very clear about what happened with Michael Williamson and the charges the police laid against him, now found guilty. And the other matters are being held in the courts. But what does gall me about this, not because there shouldn't be cooperation with the Royal Commission, not because there may be some lessons learned, but $100 million on looking at trade unions and not looking at the people who've been paying these alleged bribes. Like, Lend-Lease hasn't barely been mentioned. And they're the ones that have allegedly paid these bribes down in Victoria. There's been no manager sacked, there's been no investigation, there's been no political witch hunt there, because in actual fact this is not turning into how you clean things up. This is turning into a political witch hunt, and that's inappropriate. But should people cooperate? Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Should the police charge these people and root them out of any organisation, including Lend-Lease? Totally.
All right. Thanks for your time as always, Tony.
My pleasure, Ray.
National Secretary of the Transport Workers Union, Tony Sheldon.